Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie Bree, and today I am sticking my middle finger up Nintendo's butt and shitting on the Nintendo 64. It's not as good as you remember it.
That's right, the Nintendo 64 was not as good as you remember. As a matter of fact, it was an awful system according to vlogger Stephanie Bree. And that's not your opinion or her opinion, it's fact. You see, a Mandela effect of sorts has swept the nation and everyone's minds linked together in a shared hallucination, all believing the same false claims about the Nintendo 64. You see, the evil... Okay, I can't do this gig anymore. Who is Stephanie Bree? Well, simple. She is a vlogger who talks about horror movie culture, Star Wars, food. She started her vlog channel, from what I can see, back in December of 2021, filming her videos unedited in her basement, her garage, and her backyard, or at least I assume it's her house, I don't fucking know. She was brought to my attention on May 10th, 2024 when Gilded Poo decided to make her the lovely topic of our live stream. Apparently a friend of his found her on YouTube and sent it to him asking him, does this constitute a lolcow? Well, don't you worry, viewer, we'll figure that out by the end of this video, that's for damn sure. Now, I would never make a video where I just attack someone's opinion because they don't like something I like. That's a frivolous waste of time. However, what's going on here is not the case. You see, Stephanie Bree is trapped in the late 90s and thinks that the console war between the Nintendo 64 and the PlayStation is still ongoing. And she is a firm, hardcore PlayStation fan. Now, I thought that both systems were good in their own rights. They both had classic games, they both had great things about them that made them unique. Because she likes the PlayStation more, she wants to convince everybody that everything they thought about the Nintendo 64 was a false memory. She just makes up problems that the 64 never had. I preferred the Nintendo 64 over the PlayStation. That's just because that's what my parents bought me. Still have mine to this day, and I play it every single year when I go visit my brothers for Christmas. But you know what you won't hear me do? Make up problems about the PlayStation just because I liked the N64 more. I'm not gonna waste my time. We're just gonna go through the video together, holding hands, singing Kumbaya, and not making fun of her horrible, awful hygiene.
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie Bree.
Oh god, we're already starting off on the wrong foot. One of my biggest pet peeves are people introducing themselves when you click on their video as if I didn't know who they were. I know who you are, I clicked on your video.
And today I am sticking my middle finger up Nintendo's butt and shitting on the Nintendo 64.
You know, I absolutely love this part right here. Why would you make a joke about sticking your hands up of someone's butt when they look like this? Like, you smoke cigars in a lot of your videos. If you can afford cigars, you can afford going to Dollar Tree and buying some liquid hand soap and washing your damn hands.
Let's go! There are three things that make the N64 suck that you forgot about.
Okay, go ahead, Bree. Tell me why it's not as good as I remember.
The first thing you forgot, well, you maybe not forgot about, but it's not what you remember. The cartridges. So every Nintendo fan will, you know, bend over and pull their pants down for Nintendo and
yeah, that's gross.
Say, yeah, cartridges, no load times, yada yada yada, fuck me. They do, you know, they're like, please Nintendo, please and thank you. And I don't agree with that. Yeah, the N64, it's true, didn't have load times. It didn't.
Okay, what's going on in your head right now? Because you literally just said they do have loading times, then you went back and said they don't. Wait, I know exactly what happened. You realized that everyone was going to call you out on your lie, so you went back and told the truth, and for some reason you didn't edit the lie out of your video. Because, yeah, cartridges don't have loading times. They never did.
However, I've played a lot of PlayStation. I got my PlayStation 1 the exact same day I got my Nintendo 64. The load times on the PlayStation 1 are grossly exaggerated. They're not at all as bad as people make them out to be. But once you get past the loading time, you have a good long stretch before the game has to load again. Some people will say, yeah, the games were like, you had 5-minute load times every 25 minutes. That's an exaggeration. That's bullshit. You had like 30-second load times every 45 minutes.
You know, I'm no scientist, but I still think that 30 seconds is a lot longer than 0. Also, what games are you talking about that have 45 minutes between load screens? Like, the most popular PlayStation 1 games I can think of are like Spyro the Dragon and Gran Turismo, games that have to load between every level. Even the Final Fantasy games have loading screens between each area. So I don't know what games you're playing where there's 45 minutes between loading screens.
So, the N64 is not that much faster than the load times wasn't a big deal. So, remembering the N64 as being superior because it didn't have load times is a false memory. Because the load times on the PlayStation were not as bad as people remember them. I'm not saying they didn't exist, they did. And in some cases, they did affect gameplay a little bit.
So just to be a little bit of a nerd here for a few seconds, the PlayStation 1 and the Sega Saturn could read discs at 300 kilobytes a second, which breaks down to 300,000 bytes. The N64 cartridge, on the other hand, depending on what the developers wanted to put in it, could run anywhere between 5 to 50 megabytes a second. For those who don't know, 5 megabytes breaks down to about 5,243,000 bytes, which means that on a bad day, an N64 cartridge made by a cheaper developer ran 17 times faster than the PlayStation or Sega Saturn discs, and on a good day ran 172 times faster. Not to mention, the PlayStation 1 only had a 33 MHz CPU, while the N64 had a 93 MHz CPU, so the N64 could process 3 times as fast as the PlayStation 1. It just sounds to me like maybe the Nintendo isn't as bad as you remember, and maybe, just maybe, you're coping a little bit because the Nintendo 64 was objectively a better system than the PlayStation. Don't get me wrong, the PlayStation 1 was a good system that had good games on it, and I'll go back and play them every once in a while, but I won't sit there and say that it was better than the Nintendo 64. And, you know, just because I'm feeling a little spiteful, I'm going to make everyone watching this video wait a PlayStation loading screen time to the next chapter. Cause, you know, according to Bree, that's not that much time.
Load times were just a thing you put up with. You didn't really sit there and, you know, cry into the wind. Oh my god, the load times, poor me.
The next point Bree brings up is somewhat of an enigma in a video that's already pretty strange itself, and that is she takes issue with the N64 controller, starting off with an anecdote that I've frankly never heard anybody ever say before.
The second thing about the N64 that you remember wrong is the goddamn controller. Nintendo fans, again, are quick to say it was the first to have an analog joystick, a home console to have an analog joystick.
Bree does this a lot in this video, and I don't understand why. Who cares if people are saying things that are historically incorrect? It doesn't make the thing they're talking about suddenly bad. If a bunch of people were running around saying that Nikola Tesla invented the cure for AIDS, would that just magically not make him one of the greatest inventors that ever lived?
The other thing about the controller that you forgot about how much it sucks is, well, let's start off with how uncomfortable it is.
What did you say?
That 3-prong controller. You have to choose choose how to hold the controller depending on the game you're playing.
Once again, we have Bree trying to pass off her own opinion and preferences as though they're fact. I've never used the controller differently depending on what game I was playing.
So, if you're sitting there for 3 hours playing racing games for 3 hours and you're holding the controller one way, and then you decide to go ahead and play 007 GoldenEye, all of a sudden you have to hold the controller a different way, that's disorienting.
No, holding a controller differently for no reason whatsoever isn't disorienting. Getting hit in the head with a fucking baseball bat is disorienting.
Even a minute or two is not that bad. The other thing about the controller that sucks that you forgot about is it's uncomfortable. It hurts your hands to hold. The N64 controller literally hurts your hands to play.
So, nitpicking prolific whining out of the way, this is the part where Bree really steps up her game because she just starts blatantly lying.
So Nintendo themselves have not even done much with releasing N64 games on their virtual services, their digital services like the Virtual Console, the eShop, and the Nintendo Switch Online. You don't get a whole lot of N64 games on those services because the controls don't translate well to modern controllers.
You know, I was originally thinking about bringing up the 7 Nintendo 64 games that were ported onto the DS and 3DS, the 21 titles that were re-released on the Virtual Console for the Wii and Wii U, or even the 31 re-releases for the Virtual Console that you can get right now on the Switch. But I'm going to disprove Bree's lie with one simple word: emulation. Hello everyone, Future Gallagher here with a post-editor's note. In case you've been living under a rock for the last 20 years, an emulator is a piece of software that lets one computer behave like another. In this circumstance, he means that an emulator on a computer can replicate the software of a Nintendo 64, allowing you to download ROMs onto the computer and play them as though you are using an N64.
So it's difficult to bring them to modern systems because the controls sucked.
Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying? Oh my god, stop fucking lying.
Yeah, you know, I can't take comfort critique seriously at all from someone who looks like the last time they took a shower was when the Nintendo 64 was released.
The Z trigger is very difficult to get to no matter how you're holding the controller. You either have to use the Z trigger and the R trigger, or you have to use the L and R trigger, and then if you need the Z trigger, you got to use your middle finger, and that's a bit of a stretch.
So I have a Nintendo 64 controller right here in my hand, so let's see how much effort it takes to actually reach the Z button when you're holding it. And we do that.
The other thing you forgot about the Nintendo 64 controller is that goddamn joystick fucking breaks all the motherfucking time.
You know, between all 5 of my brothers and I, we've had a lot of Nintendo 64 controllers over the last 2 decades, and none of the joysticks broke. So, Bree, I guess you're just really rough on the joystick, if you know what I mean.
But by design, in 1996, 7, 8, 9, 2000, when you were playing N64, you were replacing your controller every 9 months or thereabouts.
No, I was not replacing my controller every 9 months. I was just taking care of my controllers better than you take care of your hair.
Do a barrel roll!
So those are 2 major things that you forgot about or are misremembering about the N64. But here's the one nobody ever talks about that I remember because this was painful. It was very painful. It was excruciatingly painful.
Oh my god, we get it, you're a pussy!
And that is the goddamn droughts. But here's the thing about the droughts you forgot about. It wasn't just you'd get maybe 3 or 4 games per month. In any given month, you'd get 3 or 4 games released at a time, and you had to wait another month before 3 or 4 more games came out. It was painful because Nintendo themselves only released maybe 6 games a year for the machine.
No one forgot about the droughts. It's just that no one cared. Everyone enjoyed the games they played on the N64 so much. They weren't freaking out like entitled man-children because they had to wait a whole new month for a new game. I mean, how much time did you have that you were blowing through 4 or 5 Nintendo 64 games a month and then complaining that you had to wait another 30 days for 4 or 5 more to come out just so you could start the cycle of whining and bitching all over again?
Themselves. Which meant it's a Nintendo console. You buy it for Nintendo games.
Holy shit, what a revolutionary statement. Oh my god.
So you get a game in January and you gotta wait all the way till the end of... You gotta wait all the way till March before a new game comes out. Let's talk about the games, because that's the other thing you forgot. The N64 gets remembered fondly as a multiplayer behemoth. Multiplayer games. Okay.
It was at this moment he knew. He fucked up.
Yes, that is actually accurate.
You were about to talk shit about it being multiplayer, and then you realized you just couldn't, and you gave up. Keep that energy going.
I did not have gamer friends.
Whoa, wait, no way, you didn't have any gamer friends. Maybe it was because every time they tried to play Nintendo 64 with you, you just bitched about it until they didn't want to invite you anymore.
You know what the PlayStation had a shit ton of? Deep, story-driven, single-player games. You know what the N64 didn't have? It did not have those games. At all. It had a small sample of... If I sat here and actually pulled up the Wikipedia and counted...
Ah, yes. You had to look it up on the Wikipedia. It's almost like you're the one who doesn't remember, not everyone else.
I would guess less than 10. Yes, Super Mario 64 is a single-player game, and we'll talk about the platformers, the single-player platformers, but those are fluff.
Wow, fluff, huh? What an interesting adjective to use for 1996 Game of the Year.
If you know me at all, you know I'm not a gigantic fan of platformers, and if you look at, by and large, sales records, platformers, by and large, aren't popular with the general public either. Let's talk about... I'm gonna go back to a Nintendo gamer who grew up on the NES. Let's talk about the games I grew up with. Mega Man. I had Mega Man 3 on the NES. Years later, I got them all. And I had Mega Man X on the Super Nintendo. I loved the shit out of Mega Man X.
Oh wow, you liked Mega Man 2? I loved Mega Man, especially Mega Man X, huh? You know, I wonder what genre Mega Man X is. What does this say? Uh-oh, Mega Man X was a platformer?
If you know me at all, you know I'm not a gigantic fan of platformers. I love the shit out of Mega Man X. If you know me at all, you know I'm not a gigantic fan of platformers. I love the shit out of Mega Man X.
If you know me at all, you know I'm not a gigantic fan of platformers.
There he is, beating that dead horse.
Alright, I had Castlevania on the NES. Good fucking game. I had Super Castlevania 4 on the Super Nintendo. Good fucking game. I had Castlevania Bloodlines on the Sega Genesis. Good fucking game. I had Castlevania Symphony of the Night on the Sony PlayStation. Damn good fucking game.
You like Castlevania, especially Castlevania Symphony of the Night? Huh, I wonder what genre that game is. Uh-oh.
If you know me at all, you know I'm not a gigantic fan of platformers.
So I'm going to fast forward a little bit here because Bree just kind of bitches that the N64 is a bad system because they don't have the genres of games that she specifically likes on it. You know, only the most mind-blowingly entertaining ones like side-scrolling beat-em-ups and arcade shooters. Here, I'll just give you like a little sample of the redundancy that you'll hear if you listen to the whole thing.
There were none. Not one on the Nintendo 64. Not even one. Zero. Zilch. None. None. neither of those games are going to satisfy your itch.
You know what? For once, Bree knows what she's talking about here. Trust me, she knows a lot about itches and satisfying them. Alright everyone, brace yourselves. This next section is not for the faint of heart. This is perhaps the most outrageous, egregious lie that Bree tells in this entire video. And I promise you, no amount of warning or hyping you up is going to prepare you for how just insane this lie is.
Okay, big, epic action adventure games. All over the PlayStation. All over the PlayStation. Nothing. Nothing on the N64. Nothing. You had an Indiana Jones game. You had a couple of Star Wars games. One of them was 3D. I'll just call it a 3D game. It didn't really have a genre. It was just a 3D game. And then the rest were either first-person shooters or simulators of some sort. Flight simulators or racing simulators. And that's it. Well, we're going to put that aside for a second. Nothing of note. Literally fucking nothing of note. Nothing of note. If you're sitting here like, alright, I'm waiting for a game to come out. And it's not coming out. And then the game comes out. You want to get excited. You bought the goddamn thing. You want to get excited. You're like me. You're a single player game. We're not gonna. So you go into Target, Kmart, Walmart, Sears, wherever, Toys R Us, wherever you buy video games.
Liar!
So I don't think there's a lot that needs to be said about this. For me, this was the lie that broke the camel's back. I just couldn't believe that Bree could sit here and just tell this bold-faced lie. This is just downright deceptive. Even if you didn't like Ocarina of Time, it was an action-adventure game. It was 1998 Game of the Year, and it was the most re-released title on the N64 and a complete total remake in the Master Quest. But then again, what should I expect from someone who said they can't stand platformers and then went on to name two platforming giants as their favorite franchise? Come on, Bree, you're not even trying. Really, all you did here was make your gaslighting so apparent that even the least socially aware among us are rolling their eyes at your desperate attempt to try to tell them that their memories are wrong.
Alright, platformers are cool. Alright, fair enough.
Wow, we're back on this again, and I see we've changed our mind for a third time.
It's not rubbish, but it's a passable game. GoldenEye 007, that's a garbage game. People, that's the other thing you remember wrong. You remember liking 007 because you had fun with your friends. It wasn't a good game. You just remember having fun with your friends. You don't remember the game being fun. You just remember having fun with your friends.
So fun little editor's note here. As I was editing the video and reviewing everything, I noticed that I kept hearing the same things over and over again. And I thought, wow, I must have screwed something somewhere in Adobe. And then I realized, no, everything is fine. It's just Bree repeats herself ad nauseum.
And people who play it today are always bitching about how, why isn't it fun anymore? Why can't they make it fun again? They can't because it was never fun to begin with. The other thing that you don't remember about the N64, or it's not as good as you remember it, is the music. The N64, again, it's a cartridge-based system with limited storage space. It does not have the good CD quality music that you have become accustomed to in that generation with the PlayStation and the Saturn and the Sega CD and the Dreamcast. The industry had already migrated to CD-ROM, and Nintendo said fuck off. You don't remember how shitty the music is on the N64. You forgot. Because you got used to it. You grew accustomed to it, and now when you hear it, you don't hear how bad it is. You let your nostalgia take over, and your fond memories of the game trick you into thinking the music is good when it isn't.
You guys smell that? It smells kind of like propane. It's almost like the gaslighting has went from just subtle to almost textbook definition. Holy shit.
If the game has music at all, because a lot of games didn't. They actually didn't because they didn't have room for it. Barely had enough room for the 3D models.
So while it's true that the PlayStation discs had 650 megabytes of storage space, whereas the Nintendo 64 had, 64, the claim that the cartridges were too full of 3D graphics to have music is just an outright lie. But you know what? Instead of entertaining this any longer, let's just play some N64 bangers. I'm pretty confident that between these 3 songs, plus the myriad of other songs I've been using the backgrounds, kind of speak for itself as to the quality of Nintendo's music. I'm sure there will be comments complaining that I forgot someone's favorite song, but let's see if Bree has anything else insightful to tell us before this video inevitably concludes.
Fuck the Nintendo 64. You remember it wrong. Because if you remember it fondly, you're remembering it wrong.
Oh my god, it's finally over. This is just someone who just rees over the idea of someone having a different opinion from them as much as they re at the idea of soap and water. So let's give Bree a quick lolcow rating. And just in case this video didn't really do a good job representing what kind of lolcow Bree is, maybe I can show you a video of maybe, I don't know, her doing some interpretive dancing while lip syncing to a song? And our scientists at Gallagher Studios have analyzed the footage and the character of Stephanie Bree, and they came up with their conclusion based solely on science and statistics. We gave her a Gallagher lolcow meat rating of select, which much like USDA sounds great, but it's actually the lowest grade. Maybe wash your hair, clean your nails, and I don't know, never say shit like this again.
Majora's Mask can suck my girl dick.
Oh God! Why didn't anybody tell me? Oh my God! My insides are on fire! No, please, no more.
Dad, I'm scared.
Get the phone. Call 911.